Hey everybody, how you doing tonight? So I'm all, like as always, what I like to do is before we get started, just to check to make sure I'm live. All right, so I am live, and again, as I always say, that's just to make sure if we don't have people join us tonight, they can always come back and watch the video on replay. If you are new to the channel, I appreciate you being here. If you're a returner to the channel, I appreciate you being here as well. If you are new, please let us know down in the chat if you want to discuss live where you're tuning in from, or if you're watching the video on replay, don't be shy either to let us know where you're tuning in from. How did you get over to the channel? I appreciate you being here, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the channel, share any videos you find necessary to other people about real estate and what we're talking about over here on this channel. And then also do not forget to hit that notification bell to know when we go live on this channel. So, hey, what's going on, David? How you doing? Good evening. Good evening. Let me know also too if you guys can hear the sound. Last week I was using a microphone. I still cannot get the microphone under control, so I went back to basically using the mic inside the computer. And once I get the mic kind of worked out, we can switch back to it. But I just want to make sure people that are watching the video on replay, or if you're watching it currently live, that you don't get a lot of that grittiness in the sound. So just let me know if the sound sounds pretty good or not. Hey, MH08, he says, sounds good. Okay, perfect. David says, sounds good. Okay, perfect. So before we jump into this whole Zillow lawsuit, in regards to what's happening, I just want to touch real quick on the interest rates as far as the mortgage, because we all know that on Wednesday, September 17th, that the Feds, they decided to cut 0.25 basis points in regards to the federal rate. And as we all know, if you've been watching any channels lately, as far as when it comes to mortgage rates, we all know that mortgage rates are not directly, they don't correlate directly to the Fed's interest rates as far as when they cut. Typically, historically, they have kind of moved indirectly with them, but as we know that they kind of work their own ways as far as on a tandem type of situation. But what's been happening recently and what happened last year is every time the Feds have been cutting, the interest rates have gone up and then they kind of soften back down. So a lot of people, as we all know, I'm not a lender, not a mortgagor, I'm just a realtor, but we have to watch these things closely as well as when we're in real estate. But as you guys all know, September 17th right here, the mortgage rates, this is for FHA. So, and again, this all depends on so many factors. So this is just something in which Mortgage News Daily is saying is around, could possibly be that average mortgage rate you might get. But yes, so needless to say, the rates were about here, around here, if you were able to get this due to all the layers and factors that contribute to getting an interest rate. If they were able to get that 5.9, it was here on the 17th. And then on after they did, well, actually it was here on the 16th, sorry, 5.91. If you were able to get this with all the layering, your debt, the income, all those type of things that gives you, that could possibly put you here. It went up on the 17th after the Feds hit that 0.25 basis point. It went up again on the 18th. And then on Friday, it started to kind of even out and soften back down to 6.03. So if you was a person kind of waiting for the Fed to do that cut, that interest rate cut, you guys just have to really understand the ultimate goal, I guess, per se, as far when it comes to purchasing a house. If you are currently trying to purchase right now, having those conversations, talking to your lenders, and seeing what might work for you, and not always just trying to waiting for these interest rates to get cut through the Feds, because as we've seen last September and this September, it hasn't done what most people thought it would do, which was drop lower than where we're already at. If you guys don't know, most times talking to my lender, they have told me that most times the interest rates are already being baked in, they're forecasted. So they're forecasting ahead based on what they expect the Fed to do. And so with that happening, and also we run off the 10-year, and in regards to the mortgage rates, everything is kind of being baked and kind of being controlled in that realm with the 10-year, the 10-year Treasury bonds, and then also those mortgagors as well. All right, so just wanted to talk a little bit about that. Hopefully that wasn't confusing. Hey, what's going on, Dad? Hey, what's going on, Corey West? How you doing today? So now that we kind of got that out the way, I don't want to bore you that much with these mortgage interest rates and everything like that. And again, I'm not a lender, but we like to have discussions about what's happening in regards to mortgage rates, because if you are currently in the market to either buy a house, if you were thinking about, if you bought a house a year or so ago and you wanted to refinance and things like that, you should kind of understand where these rates are going and kind of dig deeper into that 10-year Treasury bond report and kind of see where that's going, because everybody thought it would get lower than 4, and it did dip down below the 4s on the day of the cut. It went to like 3.99, and then it went back up to like 4.1 something or 4 point. So it dipped and then it went back up, and then we saw mortgage rates spike up, and now they're softening back down, but they're a little higher than they were a couple of days before. All right, so now let's get into this Zillow lawsuit. If you guys don't know, Zillow is going through a lawsuit right now. Well, not a law. They're not going through a law. I'm not saying right now. They have been hit with a lawsuit, so it has yet to reach the court system. So they may be able to, if they feel like this is something that might cause a crazy type of situation with their practices in the company, they might decide to settle outside of court. But after me kind of reading the lawsuit, and we'll read it together if you guys are okay with that. I don't, don't want to bore you, but I like to. I love to read these court cases, especially when it comes to real estate. You can always access these documents online if you like to read. I know nowadays most people don't want to read, but if you like to read, you can definitely access these court cases online and see what's going on in any particular industry. In regards to if the lawsuit is available online, which 9 times out of 10 the lawsuits are available online unless it's like a closed case. Croy West said, "Oh no, I love Zillow." Yeah, so Croy, everyone loves Zillow, right? Zillow has become a platform in which most of us now, as consumers and even as agents, will go online, will check out Zillow, right? A lot of the consumer base has gone to Zillow even to price their house based off of what Zillow put as their estimate, right? And because of that, most people will be like, "Oh, my house is worth X, Y, and Z." Even though we know Zillow cannot get inside your house. Zillow is not seeing if you have a busted door or a busted wall or a floor and a hole in the floor, different things like that. However, this lawsuit is more based around the behind the scene practices that people probably don't know as consumers. And this is something that when I got to my brokerage and they buy into, they call them the Zillow Flex program. It's like supposed to be like a referral type of system thing, and they take a certain percentage of the profit off the top because they feel like this is a referral fee in order for you to be able to be connected with a possible buyer interested in buying a house. Or sometimes I've seen it where they come through with somebody that's looking to sell their house. They'll bring them through the referral channel as well. I have yet to have any dealings with the Zillow part in that way, but a lot of people within my brokerage kind of deal with Zillow leads. Something that I'll probably dabble in, I'm gonna be honest, just because I'm not originally from the state of Georgia, and when you're trying to get out there and do more real estate deals, you have to find other sources of possibly getting connected with somebody. So I'll probably dabble in a little bit, but I'm not a big person that pays for a lot. I don't pay for leads, and most brokerages and some teams pay for the leads. But HOA said they should have sold my house to Zillow when they were buying. Yeah, you should have sold it when they were buying. They were just buying it based off of whatever their Zillow's estimate said online. They were buying people's houses, even if the estimates were incorrect. Well, most of them, I'm gonna say most of them were incorrect, but I'm gonna say a good 70% of them probably were incorrect. So yeah, you should have bought them then. I'm like, everybody should have known when the CEO of Zillow was trying to get what his estimate stated online, and he didn't even get what his estimate said that his house was worth online. People should have known then that the Zillow's estimate does not hold its value and weight as much as people think it should, right? But most people, they probably didn't realize that. They probably didn't realize that the CEO of Zillow couldn't even utilize his estimate to sell his house at that cost. But that's where people kind of lean to. So let's kind of jump into this. to this lawsuit. He said, my estimate was crazy. How much was his estimate? Was it worth more than you think your house was, or was it under? Typically, it's always going to be a little higher than what the house is. So this lawsuit is against Alucard Taylor, individually and on behalf of himself and all others. Similarly, let me delete this. Similar, I guess I'm a plaintiff really, because it looks like they're trying to do like a class action lawsuit. And I'm not a lawyer either. We're just reading through this lawsuit, you guys. And of course, the plaintiff is Zillow Inc., Zillow Group, Zillow Inc. Homes, Zillow, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right, so we're going to go read through this table of contents. And we're going to kind of skip around this lawsuit and back and forth and kind of just reading through it together. And let me know your thoughts about while we're reading this, while we're discussing this lawsuit around Zillow. Again, this particular lawsuit that they're kind of being hit with, even though it has yet to go to court. This just came out. They're being hit with it. We'll see if they settle outside of court or if they'll try to do something in court. I feel like they'll probably actually take it to trial, because after reading through this lawsuit, I feel like Zillow is going to feel like they haven't done anything wrong or illegal in this matter. But we'll see what happens if it goes to court or not. But this particular lawsuit is more about the Zillow Flex program that they offer, in which they take a certain percentage from the agents off the top prior to the agent getting paid their actual compensation or commission, however you guys want to word it. So they want to kind of do away with this particular thing. MHOA said back in 2018, Zillow said this dump was worth $375,000. It was closer to $200,000. Oh wow! So they overestimated $175,000. Yeah, this estimate could be really interesting. And the crazy thing is that when you're a realtor and a seller comes to you based off this estimate, it's like when you have to tell them the truth that, hey, your house might not be worth what Zillow is stating as far as his estimate, they kind of like, whatever, you don't know what you're talking about. You're not a good realtor. You think, I can go to another realtor and they're gonna give me what my estimate says. And sometimes you have to say, no problem, I understand. I'm sorry that I could not service you in the way you wanted me to service you in regards to selling your house for you, but I'll let you go and explore the other agent, and I wish you the best. That's all you can say, right? Because what are you going to say? Even today, it's $275. So you still feel like it's overvalued about $75,000 than what you expect it should be. I can't, of course, I don't live where you live at, so I can't kind of do the comparables in the neighborhood, but as a seller, you know what your house is typically worth. So it says plaintiff Alucard Taylor brings this action on behalf of himself and on behalf of the plaintiff class. It says considering all persons and entities who bought a home using Zillow agent. So he's bringing it against Zillow. So we'll go down here in the introduction. It says Zillow is an undisputed market leader in online real estate listings, investment presentation. It notes that it has 66% of the U.S. real estate audience share, twice as high as its nearest competitors. One of Zillow's competitors, of course, is Homes.com. You got Redfin, all these other competitors, and Zillow still trumps that because a lot of people utilize Zillow to look around. It also promotes the fact that 80% of consumers come to Zillow directly, and that Zillow revenue growth has meaningfully outperformed the challenged housing market. So we'll skip down here some more. All right, so this is where it gets into the Zillow. It's called the Zillow Flex program, in which they do with brokerages in regards to taking that fee, a percentage of the fee off the top. Zillow's ability to monetize the domicile is based on deceptive and illegal conduct. When potential buyers are on Zillow's website, Zillow tricks them into signing up with a Zillow agent. If the agent is in part of the Zillow Flex program, Zillow gets 40% of the agent's commission, a payment on the back end that is undisclosed to all parties. So most people don't know this, that Zillow takes that 40% on the back end. So again, when you are a realtor and if your brokerage pays to be a part of the Zillow team, typically what happens, so let's just break it down. The brokerage, a team within a brokerage, they'll pay for Zillow leads. They call them Zillow leads. And with Zillow leads, you can pick zip codes in which you want to buy in. And in regard to buying the zip codes, anytime somebody is requesting a tour or want to see a house in that zip code or contact an agent, they'll put their information in. It'll go to those agents that have paid for their zip in that area. The first agent to answer whether it's an app that they have that they can click accept the offer or accept the lead or win the lead, or whether it's a phone call to try to accept the lead or win the lead. They get that. They're then connected to that particular person who reached out in regards to a certain property that's currently listed on Zillow. In the midst of that, before that person comes to you, they're connected to there's the Zillow team. They have a Zillow team that is sitting there and they're asking you questions, and they're basically jotting some things down. And then they shift you over to the agent. So it goes, you click on the button, you go to their Zillow center or team or warehouse, wherever they have their people sitting at. They ask you questions, and then in turn, they shift you over to the agent who possibly won. They call it like winning the lead. And then it comes over to you, to that agent, and then that agent has a conversation with you in order to book an appointment to see the house. Let's see. MHA said houses around me sold for over 400,000, but they're larger and better shape. By the way, the house next door that he bought, he thought he'd get 495,000 for, is now on the market for 420,000. Oh yeah, so that's the thing. Like you said, MH08, with your house being a different square footage, a different size, maybe a number of bedrooms, and different things like that, you know that your house is not comparable to the other houses that sold around. So with Zillow's estimate, as you're kind of stating here, which we all know, it's an algorithm situation, right? It's all computerized per se. It's picking up all the data in the area, everything that's closing in your area, and it's making a comparable based off of that and giving you a estimate based off of those type of houses around you in your neighborhood, because they want to stay in proximity initially. In your neighborhood, they're kind of taking that data and saying, hey, this is what your house is worth based off of what closed around you, even though your house is not truly comparable to those other houses. And again, like we said about Zillow, is that we all know Zillow cannot get inside the house. Zillow is not like an actual realtor. It's not somebody that's walking in your house and saying, hey, you have a big old hole in the wall. Hey, your roof, your ceiling is falling through. It's water leaking. Hey, you know, your electrical is dated, or your plumbing is X, Y, and Z. And with that being the case, sometimes that can also deduct how much your house is worth in regards to it being more of a depreciating asset instead of an appreciating asset because of those factors, right? And with that, then you base the price of your house according to those type of things you see, right? Unless you decide to get anything fixed, unless you turn around and say, hey, I'm actually going to patch get the hole in the roof fixed, the water is leaking, I'm gonna get that remediated, and then I'm gonna get that fixed. I mean, we're gonna put the new wood in, new drywall, whatever, blah, 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 get all that done. Then you can start kind of adding things back on, right, based off of that. But yeah, Zillow can't come into your house. So I know a lot of people feel like sometimes even if they do for sale by owner, like, well, Zillow said my house is worth this, even though I know it's not comparable to these houses, and my house might be leaning to the left, but Zillow said due to the estimates worth this, so the agents don't want to give me what I know my house is worth because Zillow told me. So now I'm just going to go and I'm just going to list it for sale by owner and do what I got to do myself because I know my house is worth this according to Zillow's estimate. So, you know, just have a good conversation about it. Would Zillow buy a house for their estimate price? In the past, that's why me and Mitchell were saying that when he said that he wished he would have sold to Zillow back in the day when they were buying homes, because Zillow, similar to like Redfin, those type of programs, they were buying houses based off of what their algorithms and their data showed them the neighborhood, right? They were doing them sight unseen, blind offers, putting them in, and buying them. So MHOA said, LOL, I know somebody else that has trouble buying. Has trouble staying MHOA. Oh, David, I'm about the half. I'm about half the square footage. Okay, half the square. All right, so it says right here in regards to Zillow. Hopefully, you guys can see this thing. So they take 40% based off of their Flex program. It says when a house is for sale on Zillow, Zillow website has a big button in bright blue lettering, posted next to the house listing that says contact agent. So let's see this real quick. I figured I would pull one up so you guys can kind of see what Zillow has on the website. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys see this if you visited Zillow's website before. But I was like, why not just pull it up? So right here, as we all can see, you see the let's bring this down. So right here for this house, right? You go to the website, it says request a tour. contact an agent. So we click contact an agent. It opens up the screen right here. You put your name and your phone number, your email, and you click contact the agent. Right here it says, I want financing information. So then also they'll possibly connect you to like the Zillow loans, that financing department as well. So if you did do this, you might want to unclick this if you already have pre-approval. If you want to get a second opinion, you can click it or whatever. But they will connect you to their financing part as well. But you put your name in here, like we stated earlier, you would then be connected to their center, and then their center in turn will connect you to the agent after this. The people at the center go through questions with you. Or you can click, if it's similar with request a tour, if you click request a tour here, click that thing, you say next, whatever, and then they'll do the same thing. It's ask you for your name, your email, your phone number, similar thing, financing. So that's what they're talking about when you click that on the Zillow website. All right, so now back to this lawsuit. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, any thoughts about this lawsuit, let me know what you're feeling. I bet you most people didn't realize that Zillow is making realtors pay a 40% fee off the top. So, and this is why they were saying in regards to this lawsuit, they feel like with this being a case, they feel like this could possibly be inflating prices too. However, I have my, own opinion for this, and we'll kind of see what you guys think or what you guys feel. So it says, after clicking that button, potential buyers are asked to provide their contact information, which Zillow provides to a Zillow affiliate agent. It says the buyer, however, naturally believes they are contacting the listing agent. So most people think when you go to the Zillow website that when you click contact an agent, that you're contacting the actual listing agent. So I don't know how, let me say, I'm gonna take you back to the website real quick for this listing. So some people say that they don't see the actual agent's information, the listing agent's information on Zillow. But if you do contact the agent, like I said, it's gonna go through that the Zillow programs. If you scroll down here, and it's not available for everybody. I think some states they don't even show it, but right here, this is the listing agent, Arthur Chung, and this is his phone number, and he works for this brokerage. So if you want to directly contact the listing agent, you should scroll down the page. If you feel like you don't want to have a buyer's agent, you don't want an agent to represent you in the buy of the house, the purchasing of the house, you rather go directly to the listing agent. If your state allows it, because I don't know, again, every state is different. I'm in the state of Georgia. I don't know how their laws are regulated and how they have to show up on Zillow via the state's regulations and the laws or whatever. But in Georgia, you can scroll down. 9 times out of 10, you can find a listing agent directly. You can get their name, you can get their phone number, and you can call them. You don't have to click if you want to request a tour. Sometimes some of these agents, I'm gonna be honest, you might get an agent that might be nice enough as a listing agent to actually come to the house and show up and tour the house with you. But sometimes the listing agent might say, "Oh, we're about to have an open house. Come to the open house." Or they might, some listing agents don't want to do dual agency because that's what it's called. If you decide to work for the seller and the buyer, every state doesn't allow for dual agency. Georgia does do dual agency. So the seller, the listing agent might say, I don't want to do dual agency. I'd rather give you another agent out of my brokerage or give you someone else to come and kind of do those tours for you as well. So it just depends on how you kind of work with it. I don't know if that makes sense. David said, I wonder if individual agents will be held liable if the judge rules in favor of the plaintiffs. Yeah, I don't know how that'll work. I actually was talking to another realtor of mine, and I was like, this is indirectly could actually, I don't want to say benefit the real estate agent, but because, like I said, they're taking 40% off the top of the compensation, right? I think a lot of people have this mindset. They think that every realtor is making millions of dollars a year. Every realtor is a hundredaire or a millionaire. And most realtors, people probably don't realize, make about $50,000 to $40,000 a year. So it's a certain percentage of realtors that make $1 million or 6 figures every year. And with that being the case, there are some agents, they might indirectly try to facilitate a higher price or try to push things up because they feel like they're getting slighted by the off the top fees by Zillow. You know, I don't know. I don't want to assume everything or blame people for such things. But then you do have agents that are like, hey, even though I might not make a lot every year, I still need to do what's right by the client that I'm servicing. And I'm going to make sure they get into this house, and we're going to make sure we negotiate according to what the market is, you know, stating. And then we're going to make sure that, you know, we do our due diligence properly. So it'll be interesting. It'll be very interesting. All right, so let's hit back to this lawsuit in regards to the Zillow stuff. But it's definitely going to be interesting, David. It says, instead, they are routed to a Zillow affiliate buyer's agent who arranges a tour of the home by getting the buyer to sign a touring agreement. All right, let's go down here. It says the touring agreement promises the buyer that the agent services are free, but this is deceptive and not true. If the sale goes through, the buyer's agent receives a commission. In addition, if the Zillow affiliate agent is a flex agent, he or she has to pay Zillow 40% of the agent's commission. This cuts the commission paid to Zillow for no services rendered related to the real estate sale is never disclosed to the buyer or the seller, the hitting Zillow fees. So basically, they're saying again that Zillow is not doing anything within. They're not having no involvement in a real estate transaction outside of quote unquote providing a referral lead through their website. Most people don't realize this, and I think we talked about this before in another live, is that as agents, when we go sit down with clients and they decide to list their house and they want to work with a realtor, we put it into our local MLS. And where I live in the Metro Atlanta area, we have two MLSs that we typically put the listings in, the FMLS and the GMLS. Some agents might just do the GMLS or they might just do FMLS. They might not do both of them. But we put them in two different MLSs. Once we put them in the MLSs, when the seller signs the contract, it states that the MLSs outsources with the IDX technology, and that IDX technology basically then pulls or exports per se that data and those listings from our MLS onto these third-party platforms like Zillow. If you guys know, Zillow also owns Trulia. It'll go to Realtor.com. Realtor.com actually is one. I think it's Realtor.com is actually one of the websites that gets the information on there first. And then it kind of pops up on Zillow, Redfin, all those third-party websites. When you, as a seller, decide to list with a realtor, the MLS has already made a deal with these third-party platforms outside of us as realtors. Us as realtors, we didn't make those deals. We didn't make those deals when you guys sign these agreements through our brokerages, because again, as a realtor, our brokerage, you're signing a contract with the brokerage, not actually with the individual realtor. I think most people don't realize that too. So I always tell people when I talk to them, if I decide to step out on the street tomorrow and I get hit by a bus, you're still in agreement with my brokerage. In order to get out that agreement with my brokerage, you have to write them or reach out to them and say, hey, my realtor, unfortunately, I hit by a bus, passed away or whatever. I decided that I want to terminate said agreement, a mutual termination in said agreement, and I would like to be out of this contract. And then you can move on and go to another brokerage, or if you want to, you can stay with the brokerage. What the brokerage will do is if I get hit by a bus, you're in contract with the brokerage, they will then in turn service you with another agent or send you to another agent because the contract is with the brokerage. And so when you sign these contracts in the state, and again in the state of Georgia, our MLS is the platforms in which actually holds our associations, I should say, not associations are the platforms in which actually hold our contracts. The Georgia Association of Realtors, we call them our GAR forms. They hold our contracts, and in the sense of that, the lawyers, they basically every year they work for the Georgia Association of Realtors, and they basically update contracts according to different things that are happening. So like last year in 2024, a lawsuit went through in regards to the real estate commissions and everything. The lawyers then updated things in those. And then once we go into the MLS, our brokerages, they get the contracts, they put them in our systems, and then we're going based off of that. So in those contracts, it already states that when you do the listing, it'll be inside the MLSs. Like we put in there the MLSs, it'll be an MLS, GMLS, and it states there too that the IDX technology will then in turn pull that for marketing purposes. So hopefully that's not confusing. I don't know. I feel like I confuse everybody. Let's see where we're at. So what they're basically saying here is that, again, Zillow, they're not rendering any services related to real estate outside of just giving the lead. And in turn, those leads, MLS has sold our data to Zillow. In turn, Zillow is now selling our data back to us as agents. And then as the brokerages or the teams in the brokerages, they're in turn buying these leads to acquire the data in which we actually put into the MLS, and they're selling it back to us. It's very crazy. It's crazy, y'all. I don't think people realize how much fees is in real estate. And I guess you could say this is a pay-to-play game. If you want to say it, like, you got to pay to play. Like every month I pay a desk fee to my brokerage. I pay a fee for our super e-box in order for me to be able to access the house. It's a blue box in which we pop the lock, open to access the house. I pay a monthly fee on that one. So whether I help somebody buy a house or sell a house, I pay fees regardless. And some brokerages might, be a one-time fee. I don't know, an annual fee, depending on where you're at, but I pay a monthly fee. And then outside of the monthly fee, when I go to do a transaction, if you're a part, let's say if I was a part of the Zillow situation, I would then be paying a 40% commission, referral fee per se, to Zillow for giving me the lead. And then after you pay that fee up, that 40% off the top, you in turn have your fee with your brokerage. So then I'm paying a broker fee. So my broker split right now, I don't mind telling people this because I'm transparent with it. My broker fee with the brokerage I'm with is a 60-40 split. So I pay 40% of that to the broker. So now basically, when you start ripping stuff down, you're like, we don't really get paid nothing. And then my brokerage is a franchise. So then I pay a franchise fee of 6%. And then we also pay an FMLS fee. If it's in the FMLS, we pay 0.0012 off of the purchase price. So let's say if the purchase price was, let me get my calculator out real quick. Let me do it on my phone. Let's just say if somebody decides to buy a house at $400,000, so we have to pay the FMLS fee of 0.0012 times the $400,000 times 0.0012. I would have to pay my FMLS $480 from that, and then the 6% franchise fee is 40% split. If I was to do Zillow, 40% out of that, and then you put some off for your taxes, and then you start dwindling it down. I tell people, you'll be surprised what our checks look like at the end of the day. And most people don't realize that, because a lot of people, yes, commissions are negotiable, but I tell people, if you have a good realtor that's worked with you, that's doing the thing you ask them to do, that's going, taking care of you correctly, don't argue their commission. Just because in totality, the commission is smaller than what you think. I think people look at the checks that you get at the closing table like, oh, this person just did this and they didn't do no work, and they just going off with all this check. No, we do a lot of work behind the scenes. You might not see if you're a good realtor. We do a lot of digging. We do a lot of work for people, and then the checks split. That at the end of the day, you can be working with a person. Like, I've worked with a person for a year, and once the check came in, I'm thankful that I got paid. But when you actually take how much you got paid and you times it by how many days in a year, when I did all that, I was like, baby, I was working for 50 cents a day. I was working for 50 cents a day. And I'm not complaining because this is a career I chose. But I always tell people, we can't count other people's pockets because we don't know what they're truly making. Thank you, David. I appreciate it. Yes, be sure to give the stream a thumbs up. Yes, like David said, please give the stream a thumbs up. That is the only way we can kind of push this information through the algorithm and get this, this conversation started and allow people to understand more behind the scenes of the real estate industry, because this is what we are. We're digging behind the scenes with the Zillow lawsuit. David said 100%. Yes, 100%, David. When you take what you're thankful for, and I'm thankful for. I'm not complaining. I don't want to sound like I'm complaining, but when you take that and you actually multiply it by the number of days that you work, and if you actually show people, like the client, how much they made, how much you would make a day based on how much your compensation was, I think a lot of people would be very shocked. Be very, very shocked. All right, let's get back to this lawsuit. It says 5, Zillow furthers its scheme to defraud buyers by effectively forcing home sellers and their agents to post on Zillow.com immediately after advertising the home for sale. So this was something else too that Zillow had effectively stated as well recently, that now they have it where if you don't immediately market as an agent, if you don't immediately put said listing on the MLS within 24 hours, then they would the listing and wouldn't show it no more on Zillow. So they're putting that into the lawsuit as well. David said, or when you pay for something just to get the deal. Exactly. When you pay, like I had a situation that I was helping a buyer's client, and the listing agent, because we had asked for some stuff off and asked for some closing costs, but I also wanted the buyers to get a home warranty as well, because I asked them to say, hey, do you want a home warranty? Being that you're first time home buyers, and since you've never experienced home ownership before, I think most people feel like home warranties are not worth it. But I feel like if you're a first time home buyer, sometimes it's a good thing to kind of get a home warranty, because you might get very thrown off, or kind of like, oh my God, if something breaks in your home and you don't know what to do, and you feel like you don't have no money or funds saved up to kind of set things fixed. So a home warranty can have you just pay that deductible, and you can get somebody to come out there and fix it, right? Not at an expensive cost. So with that being the case anyway, me, the agent was like, oh, my seller can't afford to keep giving money out per se. And so we split the home warranty. So money came out of my pocket, her pocket, to split the home warranty for the buyer. So like we said, the things too that we help to pay sometimes to get the deal done. And sometimes we as agents will short our commission, just because we want to make sure the person gets in the house, or the person as a buyer, if you feel like your situation, you can't come out of pocket and you really want this house, we do things to make sure you get what you want. And I don't think people realize that. So yeah, I don't know. I don't want to get all deep into it, but he said, MHOA said, isn't the struggle with home warranties actually getting the warranty? Yeah, you have to make sure, you get a good home warranty, and, make sure you utilize it too, right? I know you can't utilize it if things don't break or things don't happen, but, make sure you utilize it. Some people feel like, to me, I'm 50-50 with the home warranty, right? Because I always buy warranties with products as well. And I feel like, okay, I just bought this whole product, and after a year, the home warranty is over, and the stuff don't break until after the daggone warranty is over. So I look at it like, oh, should I buy this or whatever? But I always say, if you're a first-time home buyer, because you have yet to experience what home maintenance feels like as far as how much things cost, that this could relieve some of that. And most times, first-time home buyers might not have that much available in savings. So a home warranty might be better for you to get paid. We could pay that, get the seller to pay that, or as I stated earlier, sometimes as agents we are okay. Not every agent will do it, but some agents, to get, to make sure they please their clients, they'll pay for said product, just to make sure you are, if anything was to occur, that you just pay the deductible and get somebody good to come out there to service you. But yes, like MHOA said, isn't the struggle with home warranties actually getting the warranty? Yes, it can definitely be that sometimes. Definitely can. All right, so it says, if the home sellers don't post on Zillow.com within 24 hours, so we kind of read this. So this is the rule in which Zillow implemented, where they wanted the sellers and the agents to kind of put their information to get their houses listed within 24 hours of going public. It says Zillow sends a violation notice to the seller's agent. If the seller's agent violates the Zillow imposed rule 3 times, the ad is banned on Zillow, effectively forcing the seller to fire the agent and find someone else who will acquiesce Zillow's coercive tactics. So let's go down here. It says the effect of Zillow's policies and content is to increase the purchase prices of homes for the buyers. If buyers were directed to sellers' agents, they would be better positioned to negotiate a lower purchase price, because the seller would not have to pay commissions to the seller's agent and the buyer's agent. So this is the part right here where I'm like, we got to understand how real estate works. So this is the good thing about reading the lawsuits and everything, because we have to understand how real estate works. So in the sense of I'm saying right here that if the buyer was directed to the seller's agent, they would be better positioned to negotiate a lower purchase price, because the seller would not have to pay commissions to the seller's agents and the buyer's agents. So if anybody understand how real estate works, when your listing agent or the seller's agent per se goes and sits down with the seller, they sit down with their agreement and they state in their agreement upfront how much is the seller willing to pay, if any, the other side of the deal, the buyer's agent. The buyer's agent, so I'll show you like our documents now. And then in turn, what happens is the seller already kind of puts that percentage inside of that agreement. And then, so even if you don't come with a buyer's agent, if you just come directly to the agent, if your state allows for dual agency, because every state doesn't allow for dual agency. If your state allows for dual agency, meaning that the agent can be on both sides of the transaction, it can represent the seller and the buyer. They represent the seller as a client, the buyer as a customer. And then the buyer comes up. If the agent, I don't want to say me, because I'm just being very hypothetical, kind of building out. If the agent sat down with that seller and said, hey, I agree to 6% or 5%, and we're going to give 3% to the listing side, 3% to the buyer side, or we're going to get 2.5 to the listing side, 2.5 to the buyer side, or 2%, 4%, whatever, do a total of 4%, 2 and 2. Then even if you come to that agent as a buyer, the agent, and without a representation, the agent can already get the other side because they represented the buyer as well. So I think we got to understand fully. And inside this lawsuit, when I kept reading it, they did state like they don't really understand how real estate works as far as the structure. And so sometimes if you don't understand how it works, maybe you need to reach out to an agent and have them break it down. But anyway, let's look at, all right, so this is our new agreements based off of, and I think we kind of went through this before on a live. This is based off of the lawsuit that had went into effect in 2020. It started in 2021, 2022. It closed out in 2024. And then the lawyers went and started rewriting our contracts or our agreements, however you want to state them. And in the sense of that, it breaks down the commission. So it says commission to brokers for professional service compensation. A, generally, compensation to brokers is negotiable and is not set by law. So we all know compensation, commission is negotiable, right? It says B, compensation for seller's broker. If seller agrees to pay seller's broker the following compensation at the closing of any contract to sell, as that term is here and after defined of the property as follows. So right here, you would then check as the listing agent and agree with your seller. If they check here 6%, put 6% here, or 5% or 4% here, that's you as a seller already agreed to give the brokerage, the seller's brokerage. You already agreed to give the seller's brokerage or the listing agent's brokerage 5, 6, 4%, right? So, and then right here where it says C, whether compensation is paid to buyer's broker, seller hereby approves the following. Select all which are applicable. 1, not initially offering compensation to buyer's broker, but marketing that the seller is open to receiving offers in which seller pays compensation to the buyer's broker. So up here, even if you sat down with your listing agent or your seller's agent, however you want to state it, and y'all stated it's 5%, and you click right here, so you're saying that initially offering compensation to the buyer's broker, but not marketing. So you're saying we're offering it, but we're not marketing it to them. That the seller is open to receiving offers in which the seller pays compensation. So you're open to the seller to pay the other side, but you're not, you're like, we might or might not offer per se, right? So if you decided you didn't want to offer it, then you remember up here, when you agree to the 5, 6, or 4% in totality, you agree to pay the listing agent or the seller's broker that. So regardless, if you decide to pay the buyer broker, you already agreed to that percentage of at the top with the listing agent. It says 2, you can click compensation being paid to buyer's broker by either seller in addition to the compensation being paid to seller's broker. So right here, it says the compensation being paid to the buyer's broker by either if you click seller, so that means the seller is directly paying you, the buyer's broker, if your buyer, your agent, the seller, outside of paying this 4% up here, they already agreed to the seller's broker's agency. So their listing agent, if they click here, they're okay with paying that percentage up there, and then also another percentage to the buyer's broker. So it said, in addition to the compensation being paid to the seller's broker, or they can click here, seller's broker, out of compensation being paid to the seller's broker. So this means that the seller broker, you already agreed. Hope it's not confusing you. I'm sorry. I know people would like leaving the live because they're like, this is too much. but yeah, so if you agree to the 4% up here, 6%, 5%, whatever, you check number 2 down here, and you click number 2, and then you click this right here, you're agreeing that the buyer's part of the compensation is going to be paid out of what you agreed to up here. It says, or seller and seller's broker are as set forth in other section, and then you create, and then this other section is right here. You create whatever you want to create it right here. And then it says right here, or no compensation being offered or marketed to the buyer's broker. So you can put up here 3%, 2%, 2.5%, whatever. That's just going to the seller's broker. And then you can go straight down here, click this. I'm not offering nothing to the buyer's broker. So that in turn would mean that the buyer would have to pay their own broker. So I know it could be confusing if it's not broken down correctly. But yeah. So anyway, that's how it's laid out with our agreements in the state of Georgia. Now, every state and the lawyers in which work on their contracts are different. So I don't know how it's broken down. And let's say David in Omaha, Nebraska, their contracts might be different. Well, they probably are a little different than our contracts in Georgia. Because again, typically lawyers in that state write our contracts. Because again, we're realtors, we're not lawyers. So we don't write contracts because that's not what we do. We didn't go to school for contract law. We went to school to, service real estate, not legalities, I should say. So with that being said, this right here is kind of a little not correct per se, because it says because the seller had not have to pay commission to the seller's agent. That's not correct, because again, if you decided to break it down, which I just showed you guys in our contracts, if you state that you're already going to pay the listing agent brokerage 6%, if you come as a buyer on the other side without an agent, the listing agent, you already agreed to pay their brokerage 6%, so they're going to get paid 6%, unless you guys sit down and you realize that and you renegotiate it. You would have to go back to your contract and see your agreement, see what you signed, your contract, whatever, see what you signed, how it's stated, so you can make sure you can effectively try to possibly renegotiate or redo the contract, amend it in some form to be able to pay less in that commission. Because if you don't amend the contract, you're going to pay the 6%, whether you have a buyer's agent or not come. So David said basically the same. Okay, so it's similar. So yeah, so this right here in this lawsuit is like, we gotta be a little bit more specific. We gotta really talk to a broker, a realtor that understands it, to break it down the right way, so people don't get false or don't get these misconceptions thinking that you're going to be saving in a sense when you're not going to save if the contract's already laid out as such. So if anybody has any questions around that, or feel like, the way in which I broke it down is not best, let me know. But I tried to do my best to break it down. Says it also incentivizes Zillow Flex agents to prioritize receiving his or her full commission, at all costs, even if the buyer loses the bidding process. Since the Flex agents only effectively receive 1% commission from the purchase of a home, so they're basically saying that it basically makes the agent try to receive the full commission. And I feel like they're also kind of trying to make it seem like the agent is trying to get you to pay purchase price or pay higher because of that 40% being cut, or the commission, which is not always the case. Every agent is different. If the house is overpriced in the community, if an agent is doing their comparables, doing everything, the agent is going to say, that's the offer here because this is what we're seeing. Some agents, I don't know. I don't want to talk bad about agents, but some agents might just make it if they're not doing the due diligence, not really looking around the neighborhood, they're not kind of researching, doing the back information, the data, pulling things, You might, if you don't do it either, just to make sure you're, double checking what's going on too, so you can, make sure your agent is doing the best that they can do for you. Then you could get kind of fall into the trap of paying for something that might not be worth what you paid for it. They have no practical flexibility in negotiating a lower. So right here it says they don't want. So they kind of keep throwing it back to commission. Like the agents don't want to negotiate a lower commission because they already know that they're getting 40% off the top. Sellers are stuck with paying 6% commission or more because the buyer agent is receiving such a paltry sum in return, therefore increasing the purchase price of the home for the buyer. So like we said again, they are also thinking that this could increase the purchase price of the home. I don't know where they keep getting some of this information from, but hey, again, every situation is different, so maybe they've seen this. They might have saw this, but I'm like, I don't know. Zillow's scheme has the intent and the effect of unlawfully maintaining high and inflexible commissions that drive up the prices that buyers must pay. Blah, blah, blah. This kind of talks about Zillow and their hidden fees right here. It says by requiring Zillow flex agents to pay these hidden fees, Zillow is further violating the real estate settlement procedures at RESPA because Zillow is receiving a payment that is not in exchange for completing the property transaction. RESPA prohibits receiving payments that are not in connection with the transaction involving a federally regulated mortgage loan. It says the Zillow hidden fees are not in connection with the closing of the property sale, and the plaintiff is entitled to trouble damages under the statute. So let's go down here. This is talking about the parties right here, the young man that's involved, and also the other parties. This goes into Zillow a little bit. So we'll just read this part right here. It says Zillow Group Inc. offers online real estate services and is incorporated in the state of Washington with principal executive office located at blah, blah, blah. You want to see right here, right here. Zillow maintains real estate brokerages licenses in several states. So this is where Zillow could possibly come in and say, "Hey, we are a licensed broker. We are a licensed brokerage, and with us being a licensed brokerage, we in turn are doing a referral fee." So they could possibly kind of put it in place that this is a referral fee. The way the lawsuit is looking at it is almost as if it could possibly be assumed as a kickback. And we know in our business, kickbacks are presumed as illegal. Let's get down here because I don't want to take too much of your time today, you guys, because I know this is a hefty article, lawsuit to read through. But if you have time, if you want to read through the full lawsuit, please be my guest. This kind of talks about the real estate industry background. It states everything. It says state and licensing laws regulator who represents sellers and buyers in real estate market. There are two licensing categories. So the real estate broker, also known as the brokerage, the individual real estate licensee or agent. Brokerage firms license individual real estate realtors or agents and are legally responsible for the actions of their licensed realtors or agents. It says licensed brokers are the only entities permitted by the state to be paid to represent buyers or sellers in a real estate transaction. So this is what I stated earlier, that the brokerage is the only entity that can get paid. When these checks are being cut at the table, they're being cut to the brokerage. They're not being cut to, Clark the realtor. They're being cut to who my brokerage is, because my brokerage they're the only ones due to law that can receive payment for said transactions, for real estate transactions. And then in turn, the brokerage is paying me out of their portion per se, with the splits and all those things. So again, when you sign a contract, you're not signing with the realtor, you're signing it with the brokerage, because by law, they are the only ones that can actually receive payment. As a result, real estate brokerage contracts with sellers and buyers are required to be with brokers, not agents, and all payments to individual realtors or agents pass through brokers. So again, as we mentioned before, when you sign an agreement, it's with the brokerage. It's not, even though you have the agent there that you're working with, ultimately, we represent the brokerage. So let's go down some more. Let's go through this. So right here, MLS says the multiple listing service is a database full of properties listed for sale within a certain geographic region. Only registered agents and brokerages that pay for membership can access an MLS database. There are over 500 MLSs in the United States. And in Georgia, we have about, because we have I think it's 100 and, I don't know if it's 49 counties or 59 counties, but we have a lot of MLSs. So as you go, we have Middle Georgia MLS, we have Central Georgia MLS. We have, as you keep moving down further south of Georgia, we have other MLS. So that's why sometimes when people come to me on, whether it be, via YouTube, or like reaching out to me in email via YouTube, or via Instagram or TikTok, or however they reach out to me, or Facebook. They say, hey, Devon, is it possible you can help me in this X and Y and Z region? And I'll say, I personally can't help you because I don't particularly like to help people in areas that I don't have access to the MLS. Just because I want to be able to see the data. And if I can't see the data, I can't pull documents out in regards to transaction, as far as like disclosures, anything that's kind of placed inside the MLS, or if I can't receive them from the other agent. I don't particularly like to work those transactions. So 9 times out of 10, what I'll do is I'll say, hey, I can, connect you to an agent in that particular area that has access to that MLS, because I don't have access to it. So I can't fully service you correctly without proper access. That's just how I do it. Everybody else is different. Every agent works their business different. That's just how I do it. So don't beat me up. After a listing is registered with an MLS, companies like Zillow automatically obtain and display these listings, like we stated earlier, through a back-end technology feeds called the Independent Data Exchange. So that's the IDX, like we said earlier. They take the data, they get it through IDX, or the virtual office website. And then it says Zillow has obtained and maintained real estate brokerage licenses for sole purposes of collecting listings. Upon information and belief, Zillow itself does not provide any brokerage services. Zillow therefore exploits the listings at little cost to squeeze out profits from the listings without any compensation to MLSs, agents, or sellers who created the listings, which is true. Zillow not out here working these listings. They're an online platform that everybody goes to because they have this big presence. People go to it all the time, whether you're renting, you're buying, you're selling. And because they're built out with this big presence, they're making their money off of realtors. Really, a majority of their money. I don't know how all their stuff work, but I feel like a majority of it is probably coming from the brokerages and the agents. As far as like paying for the leads and all this stuff or whatever. So, okay, Zillow Flex, it says behind the scenes, Zillow operates 2 different programs for prospective buyers, agents, the Zillow Flex program and the Premier program. The Zillow Flex requires Flex agents to pay Zillow up to 40% of commissions the agents earn on sale, the hidden Zillow fees. The Zillow Flex agents also required to steer buyers to Zillow home loans. It says based on publicly available information, the Zillow agent identified above as RH. So they said that the agent that they kind of identified in this lawsuit was named. They put a name to them and they just called them RH, the RH team per se. RH's team brokerage service works real estate, advertises itself as Zillow Flex, which based on how the real estate industry operates means that Zillow agents are Flex agents. Below is a clip from Instagram. So they took their Instagram page and it says right here, Zillow Flex Partners. Let's kind of skip through this real quick. Let's talk about Zillow Flex. It says the defendant's fraudulent conduct. The overwhelming majority of houses for sale listed in the MLS are displayed on the home search platform, and most prospective buyers search for homes on Zillow, but buyers and sellers are not aware Zillow generates the majority of its revenue by engaging in deceptive business practices that inflate the purchase price of homes. Says financial analysts have called Zillow the clear leader in the market and have stated that Zillow traffic share appears larger than that of its next 3 competitors combined, and its reports about 80% of its traffic comes from organic or direct sales. This is a major competitive advantage for Zillow. So we kind of broke that down again. Let's see, because some of this is repetitive, sorry, so you guys, so I'm kind of shifting through it real quick because when I read through it's repetitive. Again, it's talking about the request button. So that's repetitive. Let's go down here. So it says basically, let's go right here. Once you request that, the tour per se says the agent contacts the buyer, proposes a tour, and then asks the buyer to sign Zillow's touring agreement. The touring agreement emphasizes that the services are purportedly free as follows. No fee for the touring services. Buyers shall not owe or pay broker any fee for the touring service. Although touring services are technically free, buyers are being tricked into believing that the agent services are free. So what they're basically saying is that you're agreeing to take a free tour, but at the end of the day, it's not stated that the agent will get paid if you decide to make said purchase, whether it be directly based off of how you guys sit down with your agreement, if you are the buyer is paying a percentage or paying the whole amount, or if the seller's agent is paying. So they're saying that because of this free touring service agreement, it's indirectly kind of making the buyer believe that the service of the agent is free. In reality, the agent has to get paid. This is how I tell people to think about anything in life, right? No one's doing anything for free in life. So if someone is to be very innocent enough to think that someone is going to conduct work for free, then I'm going to have to give you a little hit on the hand, a little pat on the hand, because nothing in life is free. You know, you might get some handouts here and there if you go to a couple of free book bag giveaway events and, you know, maybe some free food stuff. And definitely go to those if you need to. I go to them myself. If you need to go and get some of those type of free little things. But as far as when it comes to most of what we live in, since America is a capitalist country, nothing's for free. Even those places that are giving you those free items per se, on the backhand there was money exchanged somewhere. Nothing's free, you guys. Let's kind of go through this. What says this is talking about the plaintiffs, talking about Forrest. We're gonna go through that. So then right here it says Zillow acknowledges that the touring agreement is designated to set up the expectation of representation. Zillow further explains the touring agreement described as the buyer agreement below as follows. So they break it down as far as the buyer's agreement says why buyer agreements are important. Buyer agreements typically lay out exactly what the agent will do for a client. However, requiring an exclusive commitment up front before the buyer feels comfortable can negatively impact the consumer experience. To put it simply, most people want to date before becoming exclusive. At the same time, agents deserve to be compensated for the value they provide to the buyers. Since this is an introductory agreement, we still anticipate that the buyers and the agents will sign a longer-term agreement that outlines compensation terms if they choose to work together throughout the buying process. So as you read deeply into the agreement, you would know that that is stated within that agreement. MHOA said, one of my favorite phrases is the taxi biz. I didn't use that much gas. I didn't use that much gas. Yeah, I think for people to assume that something is free in this country, is very innocent, I should say. Very innocent, because we know we're in a capitalist country that's based off of consumerism. So for you to think that it's free, hey, to each his own. The reference to compensation terms relates to commissions, not the hidden Zillow fees, which are not disclosed to the buyer or the seller. So this kind of breaks down more about the touring agreement, the buying agreement, how they you sign a touring agreement. Then it talks about the NAR settlement situation, about the buyer's agency. And so basically what the whole lawsuit is kind of saying is that the buyer is not being told that Zillow is collecting hidden Zillow fees that the agents are paying at closing via the commission. David said, when something is free, you are the product for sale. Exactly, David. Exactly. That's a good one. When something is free, you are a product for sale. Just like MHOA said too. I didn't use that much gas. It says, my folks used to weather those timeshare weekends. They used to go down there and get those weekends when you had the timeshares. When you paying it, even though people don't realize that you paying it. So it says 45 sales of referrals or leads to real estate agents are Zillow primary source of revenues, which go to, so they're saying that Zillow made off of these lead sources or referrals per se $2 billion last year. So based off of the referral system, the sales of referrals or the leads to real estate agents through Zillow primary revenues, they're saying Zillow made $2 billion last year based off of that 40% hidden Zillow fee that you as a consumer don't know about. As sellers pay inflated commissions and traditional real estate brokerage experience declining revenues, Zillow revenues continue to grow. Real estate agent and commentator John Brooks further discussed Zillow deceptive business practices and realtor fees as follows. So they have this young man right here talking about this stuff, so they grabbed his stuff. out of here. This is just talking about what he's saying. Like these referral fees are what make it so expensive for agents to operate in the market because there's 204 million unique active users on Zillow. So basically, this gentleman is basically saying how it makes it hard for a real estate agent to operate effectively because everybody is on Zillow's platform, browsing. And as it states here about the 40% being taken out, we can browse to this. It's still him talking right here. He says right here in 46, in truth, contrary to John Brooks' statement, the Zillow listings do not routinely even include the seller agent's phone number. Many times it simply provides the agent's name. So again, like I said, it depends on what state you're in. So like in his video, he's stating that the agent name, like I showed you guys earlier, if you scroll down, you'll find the agent and their phone number right there. And what this is saying, what they're saying in this is that sometimes you can go on some of these Zillow, listings, and they might not have the agent's information there. It just has the agent name. So again, I don't know. In the state of Georgia, I always can see the agent's phone number. Croy said, "This is good. I don't think the average buyer knows this." Yeah, thanks, Croy, for sticking around as always. You, MHOA, David, my dad, and everybody else who's on here tonight kind of viewing. Yeah, I don't think the average consumer knows this, whether it be the buyer or the seller. And so that was the purpose of kind of, doing this and going into this lawsuit and kind of reading through it. Like I said, it has yet to actually hit trial yet. It's something in which was filed and they're looking for possibly going to trial. I believe I would be very interested if Zillow settles this outside of court. I feel like they're going to go to court for this because the way in which they're going to say it is that this is a referral fee. This is something that, and they stated even inside this lawsuit too, that it's a referral fee per se, lead or whatever. And I feel like Zillow's going to say where we have a license as a brokerage, according to, laws per se, we can do referral fees. However, me as a realtor, I've always been against this thing, which is so funny because it's a lawsuit coming from the perspective of a buyer, and I'm feeling like they're getting duped because of the 40% hidden fee that the agents pay off their commission. And I've always stood on this from the side of the agent. Like I said, I haven't utilized Zillow Flex, within my business. However, it is something that I'll probably dabble in just because as the market is turning over, you want to just see what other spaces might offer. But in regards to that, I'm like, when I saw this originally, when I looked at this program before, I was like 40%. I'm like, baby, after all these splits in this commission, you take 40%. I'm not doing that. I'm like, I was like, I don't even want to do that because it's 40% out of the little bit I do get when I, help somebody purchase a house, or sell a house, and there's no slight to people in regards to that. It's just, again, I don't think people realize how much work goes into it when you're working with a good realtor and when you put as much effort into it. And if you're working with a person for a long period of time, it's really, once you break it down again, it's pennies on a dollar. And I'm not complaining again. I don't want people like, oh, you complaining. I'm not complaining. This is a field that I chose to get into because I really want to educate and help people in real estate to make them see the bigger picture, make them see the underlying things that happen in real estate and understand, real estate in totality, whether it be from me having a probate attorney on these lives, whether it be from me having lenders on the live, insurance people on the lives, having these conversations, similar to like what David does as well, that who living in Omaha. Where if you go to his lives on Tuesday nights, he has other professionals on there to educate you, to make you understand more about the real estate, the back ends of real estate, how it works. So, so that's what we're trying to do. All right, so let's get through this. We're almost done, y'all, because I don't want to keep y'all too long. We already went over time, and I know people are leaving because they probably like, oh Lord, this boy just be running his mouth. It says right here, so this is talking about Zillow. Let's go through this. This is talking about fiduciary stuff. Defendant's anti-complaint. No, I don't think I want to read that part. We just have my notes. I have my notes over here to see what part we want to jump to. Okay, we're going to pick up at page 22. So right here, this is basically talking about class action lawsuit. Let's go 22. Like I said, we're just browsing through it because some of it is repetitive. And this is it's 29 pages, but we're not. This is going to be the last of it. This is 20. I think okay, right here. It says violation of the real estate settlement procedures, which is the RESPA. It says 81 plaintiff repeats and incorporates by reference each paragraph of blah blah blah. RESPA Settlement Procedures Act. It says right here was enacted in 1974 with consumer to provide consumers with greater and timelier disclosure of the nature of costs of real estate settlement process to protect them from abusive practices. That it says RESPA premise was that complete disclosure of information would preclude illegal kickbacks. See, this is how I'm saying that we're saying like kickbacks, fee splits, unearned fees, and compensated referrals. So they're trying to put it on the gaze of like, again, Zillow has no play within the transaction, so it's a referral fee, it's a kickback, it's a split, and which they shouldn't be able to take because they have no, they're nowhere within the transaction. That's what it seems like from me reading it, and I could be interpreting it wrong. So it says therefore empower the consumer to get the same or better services at lower cost. So this is talking about RESPA. And then right here kind of breaks down the different things. So this is stuff that we learned in our real estate class too, RESPA, because Georgia, we have the RESPA, well, every state has the RESPA, I believe. But Georgia, we have like BREDA and different things like that, all these other laws. So that kind of talks about the kickback, the no referral fees. Says no person shall give, no person shall accept any fee, kickback, or other thing of value pursuant to any agreement or understanding, oral or otherwise, that business incident to or part of settlement service involving a federally regulated mortgage loan shall be referred to any person. Any referral of a settlement service is not a compensatable service. It says, except as set forth section 3514G1, a business entity, whether or not an affiliate relationship, may not pay any other business entity or employees of any other business entity for the referral of settlement services to businesses. So again, they're trying to relate it all to this RESPA Act, to the some of these I believe like different laws, federal laws and things like that. So we'll get out of this. But yeah, so that's about the lawsuit, you guys. I don't want to keep you no more. Like I said, if you didn't know, as a buyer consumer, now you kind of know a little bit more. You can definitely go and do some research on your own in regards to that whole actual lawsuit that has been filed, and kind of read it in depth and get a little more information about it for yourself. But again, I appreciate you guys being here on Sunday night. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, like, share, hit that notification bell to know whenever we go live. And I will see you guys next Sunday. I appreciate everybody for tuning in again. I appreciate David as well for and I just want to give his channel a shout out real quick before we leave out of here as well. I appreciate David Matney for always taking the time out his busy real estate life, and everybody else too as well. I don't want to just say David, but I appreciate MHOA, Corey West, my dad, James Clark, and anyone else who is on the lives on Sunday. I appreciate all you guys out. But I want to give a shout out to David in regards to share his channel so that you guys can head over there. And if you haven't already, subscribe to his channel, tune into his channel on Tuesdays. He goes live 8 p.m. Eastern time. That's when I watch him because I'm on the East Coast. But he is on Central time. And so if you're on Central time, tune into him. I believe it'll be 7 o'clock Central time, and I'm 8 o'clock Eastern time. But nonetheless, you guys, I want to thank you for being here this Sunday night with me. Again, appreciate everybody. Thank you, Corey West, for stopping by, MHOA for stopping by, David Matney for stopping by, and my dad as well for stopping by, and anyone else who joined us tonight. Thank you for coming by. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your Sunday, and I look forward to seeing you guys back here next Sunday. All right, take care, everybody. Have a wonderful Sunday night. Bye-bye.